ain't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Eevee and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie the Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. We are back for another round of the best comics this week. As per usual, we're just gonna jump right into it. First and foremost is gonna be Absolute Wonder Woman #7. This issue is basically kind of a case study in not only just Diana's personality, as is a lot of the Absolute Wonder Woman stuff has been under Kelly Thompson. A lot of it's been a case study in just who this version of Diana is and why she is so familiar, yet in some ways kind of different from what you would expect out of Wonder Woman. And in this particular one, we learn a bit more about why Diana is out roaming in the real world after having spent so much time in hell. That is something that's kind of been a lingering question. What is she doing outside of hell? Wasn't she supposed to be trapped in hell, never to escape, or at least not supposed to escape on any level? That's kind of the whole purpose of being trapped in hell, right? We've clearly seen Diana out running around, running roughshod in the real world, fighting bad guys. She's already fought the Tetracide. She is, kind of made a name for herself and put herself on the radar of some very influential people, one of which being the Absolute Universe's version of Veronica Cale. But in this issue, we get to learn a little bit more about that, and it's all largely tied to a story, probably one of the more popular Greek tales, the tale of how Persephone found herself being married to Hades. The way that Kelly ties all this together, as well as tying it to another parable and also kind of showcasing how Diana in her youth as a child didn't understand the point of the story, only to later on as a teenager or maybe closer to like a young adult understanding what the tale was really meant to impart upon her, and using that in the future to strike back at Hades in this moment where Hades has had her held down. We saw in the previous issue, Hades has Diana's mother, her adopted mother, Circe, locked away, holding her under lock and key, and effectively putting Diana in a position where she has to make a choice. She has to fight for her life and make the choice of whether to stay in hell, should she win the fight for her life, or does she leave? But if she leaves, she's never to return again. And this story is all about how Diana subverts Hades' whole plan. Next up is gonna be G.I. Joe #6. Man, look, the Energon universe, it's lit. There's no two ways about it. There's no fighting it. The Energon universe is everything right now. It's that whole setup that I feel like not enough people are talking about. Not enough people are talking about what's going on with G.I. Joe, Transformers, Void Rivals, the various G.I. Joe spinoff series that have come off, since the kickoff, like Duke and Cobra Commander, Destro, Scarlet, so on and so forth. I feel like people aren't talking about them the way that they should. And G.I. Joe #6 is proof positive that everyone needs to get on notice. One of the things I really liked about this is the first issue that we're getting where we're actually seeing Duke take on Cobra Commander. And I'm gonna tell you right now, this is something that I've been waiting on for a long time, because while yes, this is the Energon universe, it's G.I. Joe and Transformers and whatnot, I love the fact that a lot of the characters that we're used to seeing being snivelly cowards, case in point, looking at you, Cobra Commander, is not treated that way in this series. And another thing I actually thought was very telling, the fight between Cobra Commander and Duke in this issue is, to me, more reminiscent of stuff that maybe you would have seen in the old G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero series, or more recently in what was the woefully short-lived G.I. Joe Sigma 6 series, where Cobra Commander was not a sniveling coward and would throw hands with Duke and win without even as much as batting an eyelash. Not because Duke was some slaw, but because Cobra Commander was just that cold. And that's what we get here in this. Well, they I feel like Joshua splits the difference on this one. He doesn't make Cobra Commander too much of a badass. Like, Cobra is not so badass that you're looking at him and going like, man, dude, I don't know how Duke is gonna get out of this. Like, it's not quite Sigma 6 levels of chicanery, but it is a situation where you realize very quickly, this ain't your daddy's Cobra Commander. This is a Cobra Commander who wants the smoke. He will throw hands, he is not above it, and he will catch a body without even so much as batting an eyelash. We also get to see a little bit of development with Baroness, mostly how, where everyone else is already pretty loyal to Duke because of either prior affiliations or just how they all know him by reputation, even the people who haven't worked with him before. The fact that they see Duke going hard in the paint to take down Cobra, you know, before they can become a bigger entity than what they are. Baroness is really the only one on the group that is not drinking the Kool-Aid, really. And it's not surprising. You know, she is a character who, under normal circumstances, is a bad guy. But in this universe, she's being treated as someone who is more morally ambiguous as opposed to being an out-and-out villain. But here we kind of see a little bit of a taste into how the Joe team is able to motivate her a little bit more to actually do something that would technically in her eyes be considered a self-sacrifice, something that Baroness has already proven over the past 4 or 5 issues that she's not willing to do, and effectively maybe possibly making her more of a full-on Joe. Like, I don't know if this is gonna cement her as a full-on Joe, but pretty close. All right, now we're gonna get into fuck shit of the week. I kind of talked about this a little bit very briefly on Threads. And if you don't follow me over there on Threads, I mean, hey, go ahead, do that. It's a whole thing. The main thing that's kind of been on my mind lately, and it's an interaction, a conversation I actually had, you know, a couple of weeks ago, when I pointed out that I thought it was really odd. Marvel Studios was not promoting the Ironheart TV series. And there were some people like,
Well, actually, Marvel, they always wait until after another show is finished to start doing promotions for another TV show. That's just what they do. You're just being unreasonable.
well, as it turns out, Daredevil is finished, and we still have not seen hide nor hair out of Ironheart. And for those that don't know, yes, Ironheart is a TV series that was actually wrapped up quite some time ago. Like, this was a show that was shot, filmed, finished, edited, everything. As a matter of fact, I think it's been done for some months, if not a year. And a lot of people, rightfully so, thought maybe this show has gone the way of Armor Wars. But I actually talked to some people today who maybe gave me an even more ominous idea of what's likely going to happen in the show. And that, you know, for those who don't know, it's supposed to be coming out June 24th. We have not seen so much as a single trailer. Now, yes, there was a trailer that was shown at D24, but that trailer was never shown publicly. And that was last year. Well, this year, the only thing we've actually seen, even remotely related to Ironheart, was a sizzle reel, a Disney Plus sizzle reel. A little bit of the teaser, some of the footage that was shown at D24, but like, there's been no promotion for this. And I want to point out, I remember being absolutely sick of hearing about Daredevil Born Again by the time that it finally came out. And this is coming from a guy, he's on my top 5 dead or alive superheroes. I always find it funny, most people don't notice this, but a guy who literally named his channel, his online persona, in a way derivative of Daredevil. Blerd without fear, man without fear. So if I was sick of hearing about Daredevil Born Again up until its release, that ought to tell you how much Marvel was promoting it. Like, I was literally seeing new trailers, new teasers, new TV spots. Like, and this was before the first episode had even come on. So yeah, and they've been promoting it for a while. By now, we are about, let's see, what's the day? The 23rd? We are about almost exactly 2 months away from Ironheart's release date, and we have still not seen a trailer. No word of when a trailer is even gonna come up. And I have this feeling that Marvel is gonna wait until the last minute to start promoting this show, and then just let it die on the vine after they release it like a week or so after Juneteenth. I'm telling you guys, man, this bothers me. This bothers me on so many levels, because I feel like if this show wasn't about a black female protagonist, we probably wouldn't be dealing with it. Yeah, I'm just saying. I'm just putting that out there. But to go back to what some people said to me earlier, they said this show was probably going to get echoed. And what they mean by that is Marvel's just going to unceremoniously drop the whole thing all at once and just do it with very little fanfare. I could easily see that. I could very easily see Marvel doing that. Now, I don't know. Maybe by the time this video goes live, maybe by tomorrow. Like I said, I'm recording this on New Comic Day, April 23rd. By the time this actually hits the airwaves by tomorrow, trailer could be out, and I could totally be wrong, and I'm totally open to that. Man, this ain't a good look. That's fuck shit. All right, so now let's get to our next entry. And this is one, it's for a book I have not talked about before. This week's entry is gonna be for a little comic called Synap. Now, I like this comic a lot because it kind of ticks a few different boxes for me. One being that I really like the art and style of this book. It's kind of mech focused, but not mech focused in the way that you would probably think. But this is a comic that also has, or rather takes, a lot of inspiration from one of my favorite anime of all time, Neon Genesis Evangelion, and takes that inspiration in a lot of different ways, whether it's the main character Shiloh or the father of Shiloh, Roke, or even just the setup of having children, or I mean, teenagers, but still children, using them to try to take advantage of the power of what is effectively otherworldly force, whether alien or supernatural, that is left a mech behind in its wake. And by the time we get to issue 5 of Synap, this here is where everything kind of closes to a head. The series does leave you with kind of a, I won't say an ambiguous ending, but like kind of an ambiguous idea of whether this series is going to come back at any point or if there will be any more issues after that. I haven't really looked ahead on that, but knowing Mad Cave, this will probably get to keep going if it's been selling well, and I feel like it probably has. This is a great story, great characterization, very diverse cast, and not just your bog standard white protagonist. I will say, don't let the cover fool you. Do not let the cover of this book fool you. Some of the coloration of the characters would have you believe this is an all-white book. It's not. There are black and brown characters, biracial characters, Asian characters, and whatnot. There's actually very few, if any, white people actually in the book. The color job on this cover, it would have you think otherwise, but yeah, I will say, cover aside, I do feel like this book really did a good job, fantastic job building up Shiloh, kind of giving you a Shinji style character, but not anywhere near as whiny or as annoying as Shinji could tend to be in Evangelion. That was always kind of the running gags, like, oh my god, Shinji is always crying. Shiloh, they are not like that at all. Shiloh is a way more interesting, way more relatable, way more compelling character who you can tell has had the overbearingness of their father just hanging over them and forcing them to pilot this mech even at the detriment of their own personal health. And I like that while, yes, this is a very mech-centric story, don't go into this expecting to see mechs fighting monsters. You're not. Imagine if you jumped in on Evangelion before they actually had the Evas to really do anything. Like, they're still piecing Evas together. Imagine that. And also kind of digging into, the connection that, these drivers, as they refer to them, are building towards the mechs, and how dangerous it is, and maybe that there is something out there in the Axon connection, which is what they call it when they mentally connect with these mechs. What else is out there that could potentially be either willing to help them or hurt them? And this series shows you a taste of maybe what the answer to that question is. Next up is going to be the Power Fantasy number 8. This issue is, I feel like I say this all the time, this is the issue I've been waiting. This is the issue I've been waiting on. Like, and it really, I think it's largely just because I'm always waiting on an issue of Power Fantasy. But this was the one I was the most curious about because of all the characters we've been introduced to thus far. Eliza is the one character we really know, I would probably say, the least about. A lot of the other characters, we've gotten backstory for them, we've gotten focus on them, but once you get to Eliza, the question always kind of remained, okay, how did this particular character become this otherworldly, demonic-looking entity, residing in what effectively looks like a hell realm? Well, we get the answer to all that. And I like the setup for it because, we're used to seeing Eliza, represented as demonic looking, creature. However, she always gave this air of being incredibly religious. So how does a person who's this tapped into Christianity wind up in hell and acting as some kind of demonic enforcer? We get an answer to that. And I think the answer is incredibly heartbreaking because it showcases just how much Eliza was into her faith, to the point that it's never really explicitly said out loud. I mean, there's just little smart remarks and jokes that are kind of thrown out there every now and again to kind of hint at it. But we reach a point where we see that, yeah, she was incredibly into her faith, like die hard, like I would even dare say like promise ring levels of into her faith. Like she would effectively have been a trad wife, like just all about the church, all about fellowship and waiting until marriage to do the horizontal polka and all that stuff. Like it's pretty much all kind of like layered out there in various ways. And then you find that something incredibly heartbreaking happens to her that pushes her to realize that maybe she's not as full of faith as maybe she might want to believe. And that maybe the people around her, people who aren't even believers in Christianity or any other form of religion for that matter, how are they able to show so much faith and so much will in ways that she only thought was possible through her own faith? How are they able to do this and she can't? Or in some cases, not that she can't, that she won't. And how jealousy festered in her heart over some of her interactions with some of the other atomics, which I thought was a pretty interesting way for them to kind of tackle this. And also in how they have been slowly kind of bringing in the idea of how the supernatural, or the metaphysical rather, is real in this universe, but not in a way that you would imagine. The fact that, yes, the hell that we see Eliza walking around in this issue, it is a very real place. This isn't some like, secret hideaway or anything like that. No, they're actually in a real physical hell, but it's not exactly the same type of hell you would expect from Christian dogma. And also at the same time that, yes, in this world, God exists, angels exist. We've literally seen one walking around this entire time, and how it's all showcased and kind of layered out over the course of, the first issue building up to this one. But here it's just, Gillen is just being more direct with it. But also, I think the thing that's incredibly heartbreaking in this issue that is really going to make you feel for Eliza is that she wants to be better, that she wants to, find that energy she used to have and get it back. She spent all this time being a part of hell, and now she has an opportunity to do some good. And she is being, for lack of a better way to put it, she's being manipulated. But by who? All right, now it's time to get into our next segment, and that is the Indie Comics Corner. Now, the entry for this week is a comic that was sent my way that is about to be on the Global Comics app. Now, the comic in question is called Betweeners. This is a very interesting series that I don't really want to say a whole heap of a lot about because it's gonna be very difficult to talk about this book without spoiling the shit out of it. I'll say this much. It's a story about a guy by the name of Shane Beck who, for lack of a better way to put it, finds himself getting a new lease on life. The trick is how he got this new lease on life. All I'll say is that Shane is not his government name. But aside from that, Shane finds himself in a situation where now that he has this new lease on life, what is he gonna do with it? And what we learn pretty quickly is that he spends a lot of his time exorcising demons from their human host. And not only that, he's dealing with the pitfalls of having recently been quotey fingers reincarnated. Things that you wouldn't normally think about. How do you talk to your family? Did the world move on without you? What's it like to be alive again? And what will the afterlife do to rectify you not being where you're supposed to be? This comic is actually going to be popping up on Global Comics next week, April the 30th. So we're kind of getting a little bit of a jump on it. So I wanted to get a head start and get this one on y'all's radar. If you haven't heard of the Global Comics app, it's my preferred way to read comics online because they literally have just about everything. You can get Image, you can get DC, you can get IDW, which just recently joined the fold. You can get Dark Horse Comics. You can get Boom Studios, Dynamite, pretty much everything. The only major comic publisher that is not on the app is Marvel. And honestly, I could very easily see them getting on board at some point. I don't have any inside baseball on that. I'm just saying that it's only a matter of time. For a long time, DC was not on the app, and now look where we are. But they have a huge offering of comics ranging upwards, if not over, 100,000 some odd different titles. You can buy comics ad hoc, a la carte, or whatever as you see fit, or you can scan the QR code right here. It'll take you to your app store of choice. You can pick up the Global Comics app, and if you use my promo code GCX Blerd Without Fear, you'll get 33% off your first 1 year subscription. Or if you want to click the link down in the description below, it'll actually take you straight to the website and it'll already factor in that 33% off right there for you. But anyway, that's the Indie Comics Corner. Let's get back to the best comics this week. Last and most certainly not least is going to be One World Under Doom number 3. This issue is hilarious. And it's because, as we know, Dr. Doom has taken over the world. He's a Sorcerer Supreme. He has gotten every single person on Earth that's in a position of power in the political arena to bend the knee to him. And now the question becomes, how do the Avengers fight back against that? They've already tried to fight him head on and they've lost. They've already tried to expose his lies and they still lost. So what do? The Fantastic Four couldn't take him down. The full might of the Avengers couldn't defeat him. Who's going to stop him? And we saw in the previous issue of One World Under Doom number 2 that the Avengers were going to work alongside villains in order to settle the score once and for all, working with characters like Madeline Pryor, Baron Mordo, Arcade, MODOK, Doc Ock, Mysterio. These people don't want to live in a world that is being subjugated by Dr. Doom. So they're willing to work with the heroes in order to do this. And I feel like this issue also gives us a lot of really fun banter between the characters, kind of poking fun at each other. The fact that, yeah, these heroes couldn't cut the mustard. So what are these villains gonna do? And just, it's really cool. It's awesome. I love to see it. And I even kind of feel like, man, I hope that this leads to something that maybe pops up later. Maybe some of these characters maybe we'll see them in I won't say a heroic light, because at the end of the day, some of them are mass murderers. Not all of them, but some of them. And some of them have had more heroic stints in the past, characters like MODOK and Doc Ock, and even Madeline Pryor. But I do find it very interesting that the character selection that was put here, and how some of them, like characters like Arcade, wholly irredeemable. And I love that they're not trying to shy away from that. But now the question becomes, is this enough to stop Dr. Doom? And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think this should be much of a surprise, considering that we're only 3 issues in to a crossover event that I think is supposed to run upwards of 9, maybe 10 issues. No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. What I find even more interesting about this is not the why it doesn't work, because obviously it's Doom. It's not going to work. He has planned for everything. But what I love here is the message that Ryan North puts down on the table in terms of why everyone in the world is bending their knee to Doom. And it's not because he's cheated. It's not because he's taken anybody over. He hasn't replaced anybody with Doombots like he did with Baron Zemo. The reasoning behind why everyone is following Dr. Doom is something that I actually think isn't even really a spoiler. It's because, why not? If the heroes couldn't cut the mustard, well, who's to say Dr. Doom can't? And it's something that's very reminiscent of our real world politics. Yeah, I've said this before, and I know some people got mad at me for saying it, but I mean, that's basically what happened and how we got Donald Trump the first time, because people were tired of the status quo. People were tired of do nothing Democrats and doing too much Republicans. They decided that, oh, well, this guy, he's a disruptor. He's going to change things. And that's kind of how the world is viewing Dr. Doom. They see him as a disruptor, and whether that's rightfully so or not is another story altogether. And whether or not the world will feel the pangs of that the way the real world is in putting its trust in Donald Trump not once but twice. We're going to see whether or not that's the case, because there are bigger fish out there. And while Doom seems to have planned for everything, it seems like there are some things he hasn't been paying attention to. Things that more ominous villains are starting to catch wind of. Did Doom forget about his duties as Sorcerer Supreme while he was running around currying favor with every single political leader across the globe? Has he forgotten about the things that a Sorcerer Supreme is supposed to maintain? All the while, he's been out glad-handing and kissing babies and handing out cigars and riding T-Rexes and righting the wrongs of the world. Is there anything he might have missed? Something to think about. So now let's wrap everything up with the pull box report. I'm gonna keep this one pretty short and sweet. Let's start with some stuff that you can be keeping your eyes peeled for over the next few weeks. One of those things being Feral. I will go ahead and say right now, if you've not been keeping up with the series Feral over at Image Comics, you need to do so. This is a book that I don't want to say too much about because I feel like it's one of those things it's better to know as little as humanly possible. I'll just pose this question to you and you can figure it out for yourself. What would the zombie apocalypse be for cats? I will also say one of the books I mentioned earlier, Synap, has a trade coming out in June, so I would definitely keep my eyes peeled for that, especially if you're a fan of Neon Genesis Evangelion. I highly recommend you take a look at that one. And if you have not been doing so, Bitterroot, I know a lot of people have forgotten this, but because it's been quite a while, but Bitterroot is back, and I highly advise, if you have not done so already, get back on that. Bitterroot, The Next Movement, has already had its first issue out. Issue number 2 is dropping next week, but you might have to check around to get that first issue, but I do highly advise, if you have not done so already, get that in your pull box. Anyway, that is the best comics this week. I hope you all enjoyed. And hey, do me a favor. If you haven't done so before, make sure you hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell so you don't miss out on videos like these. The YouTube algorithm is really hit or miss with how it pushes this particular video series. So make sure you don't miss anything by hitting the subscribe button, tapping the notification bell so you get notifications about everything. Also, make sure you hit that like button, especially if you're already subscribed, because it just reinforces YouTube making sure you always see when new videos like this drop. And, hook a brother up, share this video around in your favorite comic book circles and wherever on socials. It actually helps quite a bit. But anyway, keep it plus ultra until next time. Peace.